hope you're having a gay day. Oh, we're going to hear from Stacy Andrews, the Executive Director of the Village Project.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today on this panel. We have some esteemed panelists. I'm so excited for you all to hear from them. I just want to appreciate you all for being here. These are just some amazing people. I absolutely adore them all. And we're, as an organization, it's just such a proud moment to be able to have this panel here today. Usually we have them on Zoom, so being able to be back in person is just such a great opportunity. As supporters, as members of the LGBTQ+ community, it's just such an honor. So thank you. I will let you go and take it on.
Well, thank you very much. Hello everyone, my name is Stephen Goings. My spiritual radical fairy name is Quazar. If you're a member of the African heritage community, I encourage you to call me Stephen. If you're a member of the queer community, I encourage you to call me Quazar. If you are both or you are neither, you get to choose. So we're here today. First of all, I have to say, typically I do a post-Pride panel for Monterey Peninsula Pride. But this year, they have made me the Grand Marshal of Pride. And so in an attempt to honor this status, or earn this status, what I decided I wanted to do a pre-Pride panel. There's not a few things going on. The other thing is I'm retiring from CSUMB. I've been there for 18 years, starting as an undergraduate. And some other people are retiring from CSUMB as well. So I thought this would be a fabulous time to have a celebration of queer activists. And so that's what this panel is. This is really, so unlike, so most of the panels we just chit, we just chit. We chit-chat, we chit-chat. With the C, we chit-chat. But this one,
aren't you glad you're in the front row? That's lunch zone.
This one, there's some joy in the house. Can you see it? This time we're actually going to do, I want you to know who these fabulous people are. So I have labored over a PowerPoint and bullied them all into sending me bios. And so we're going to spend about 10 minutes on each panelist. So about 5 minutes or however long it takes will be just reading the bio and showing you their illustrious history. And then some of them, I believe, have prepared some remarks. So we're going to spend about 10 minutes on each panelist. I wanted to let you know, if you want them, there are pronouns in the back. We have she, he, and they, them. On your seats, there are, so this is a free event. However, there are 3 organizations who are part of this event. Obviously, it's an event of, it's a program of Monterey Peninsula Pride. I'm very proud of being one of the co-founders of that organization, along with many other people here. Also, of course, the Village Project obviously is hosting this. And the other thing that I want to bring up is we have just opened up the Rainbow Raft Pride Center at CSUMB. Yes. And we are really hoping, because what we're finding is that a lot of the local Pride organizations, they do a fantastic job of doing the celebrations. There's not enough, shall we say, there's not enough capacity to really be doing as much advocacy as we need to be doing in this time where we have like 515 anti-LGBT bills across the nation. So we're hoping that the Rainbow Raft Pride Center can be a place, because it's really going to require the support of the off-CSUMB community to make it happen. So we're hoping that that can be a funnel where we can do some real activism, and so that will be the main part of the discussion when we get to that point. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now let's start with. We're just going to do some very brief introductions. We're going to go from right to left. And so I'm just asking everyone to say your names, your pronouns, and then something that some identity within under the LGBT umbrella, and one identity that intersects with that somehow. And we'll start with Dave.
Oh, I don't want to go first. My name is Dave Reichard, he, him pronouns, also retiring from CSUMB after 25 years. Gay, queer, I sort of identify both ways.
And something that intersects with that.
Something that intersects with that. Well, I'm also a historian, and as you're going to hear about that, and that's a very important part of the work that I have done over many years. So I'm going to say that's an intersecting.
Okay, thank you.
Deb Busman, she, her, they, and lesbian, dyke, queer, all of it. And intersecting identities. I'm a writer, softball player, motorcycle rider, old school.
The works.
Advisory board member of the Village Project. So that's me.
Okay. JT Mason, her, she, or she, her, right? I always want to do her, she, because I like chocolate.
Hershey!
That's a good one.
You should have cued me.
Emergency chocolate.
Because that's my pronouns. Lesbian, I'm always I'm very comfortable with that. Queer, I still coming back to. I'm catching on a little bit. I have a 26-year-old that's keeping me up to speed. Right. She just turned 26. So I'm a social activist with lots of different groups. Unitarian Universalist Church, Whites for Racial Equity, Palenke, and they all intersect.
Okay. Hello again, I'm Stephen and Quazar. They, them pronouns, being as I'm two people, that makes sense, right?
Yes.
So they, them pronouns. For those of you who really understand the nitty-gritty of the queer community, I'm a bi-gender androsexual. For the rest of you, I'm gay. Okay.
So you'll have to explain that.
Other important identities, African heritage, multiple disabilities. The one that's most impactful is attention deficit disorder, which will certainly be on display at some point today. Okay.
Hi everybody, Tyler, Williamson, he, him, his pronouns. I am one of the founders of Monterey Peninsula Pride, and last year was my last year on the board, and so I'm so proud of all the work that everybody that's on the board and all the volunteers that have continued to help to see it continue to move forward without my involvement. It's just been a beautiful thing to see, and just so appreciative of the community coming together to help continue to celebrate this beautiful community. So.
Thank you, Tyler.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm John Perez. He, him pronouns. I am an openly gay Episcopal priest. I'm Hispanic, and gosh, I guess that's enough of the intersexuality between clergy and
I think we need some applause for that. That is not an easy intersection, right?
And blind.
And blind,
And
right.
blind. It's like a bad bar joke. Blind gay priest walks into a bar.
The other thing I failed to mention on the sheets that are on your paper, again, trying to earn my position, I just launched a new newsletter called Along the Rainbow for the Pride community. So if you're interested if you're not getting it or interested in subscribing to it, just send me your email address. Mine is on the sheet. Okay. So let's get started. We are going to get started. I'm going to turn on the PowerPoint, and I'm going to put on my. So here's the thing. I said 10 minutes per person. So that means that I'm going to use a timer, And if the timer doesn't ring and we're done, we'll move on to the other person.
Okay.
If the timer does ring, I will not stop anyone from talking. However, everyone will know that you've gone over time. Do with that
Public shaming.
So if you can draw your attention to the screen, we're going to start with the fabulous Tyler Williamson. Woo-hoo! So here's a quote. Do you want to read your quote?
No, I don't even know where this came from.
Can you?
I can.
If you can see it.
In the original voice, I guess.
Yes.
The path I took had a lot of scenic routes and had more than one pit stop on the dark side of the town. But each one came together to teach me lessons and to help me grow.
So Tyler Williamson grew up in a military family. His mom served in the Navy for 20 years. After graduating high school, he went to the Navy Academy Preparatory School in Newport, Rhode Island.
Going deep here.
I'm
triggered right now.
We got 10 minutes.
I'm sweating. I know, seriously.
When Tyler found himself struggling academically, he expected remediation and instead was summarily discharged. He now thinks his discharge was due in part to being clocked as a closeted member of the LGBT community who just wanted to sing and dance. Years later, Tyler reflected, it was a very macho environment, very masculine. I'm about love and compassion and getting along. After attending junior college in San Diego, Tyler traveled with his family to Monterey, where he attended Cal State Monterey Bay, earning his bachelor's degree in pre-law human communications in 2013.
That's me in there, by the way.
Is that what 5 years earlier, Tyler had volunteered for the 2008 Obama presidential campaign. In fact, Tyler took a year of absence from his studies at CSUMB in 2012 in order to help secure Obama's second term in office. Campaign staff were so impressed with Tyler's organizing skills that he was pressed to run the campaign out of the San Francisco headquarters as Deputy Regional Field Director. And it was during this time that he came out fully as a gay man. While Tyler was earning his degree at CSUMB, he also began working at the travel office at the Naval Postgraduate School. In over a dozen years with the Naval Postgraduate School, he worked in various positions, including as executive assistant to the Chief Information Officer. After CSUMB, he enrolled in the Naval Postgraduate School himself and now has a master's in business administration. Much local Democratic Party activism surged on the Monterey Peninsula following the election of he who shall not be named. And Tyler was involved in the Democratic Central Committee for Monterey County and Indivisible Monterey Bay. Tyler was soon approached by then Seaside City Councilwoman Kayla Jones to organize a gay pride march in 2017 in the city of Seaside. Tyler quickly recruited an organizing team and was the undisputed driving force in developing Monterey Peninsula Pride. In 2018, Tyler successfully ran for a seat on the Monterey City's Council. Even more impressively, despite being vastly outspent by his incumbent rivals, Tyler was elected as mayor of the city of Monterey in 2022, thereby becoming simultaneously the first black mayor, the first gay mayor, and the youngest mayor in the history of Monterey. And so, Tyler, for you, I have the certificate of achievement that this acknowledges Mayor Tyler Williamson as a recipient of the Monterey Peninsula Pride 2024 Grand Marshal's Queer Hero Award for exemplary service to the queer community and the broader communities of Monterey Peninsula and beyond. Hopefully I pressed the go button, did I? I did not. Okay. You got 5 minutes, say something.
Say something. No, I mean, it's just been such an honor to get into the work here. So just to kind of weave in a little bit about my experience and kind of what makes me tick here. You know, my mom being in the military, she always had, I have 3 brothers. I have 1 older brother and 2 younger brothers, and in our entire lives moving around the world due to my mom's military service, she always had us involved in the community. So it wasn't any different when I came here and just wanted to really find a way of getting plugged in. And it is truly the people that I've had the opportunity to interact with that has led to me wanting to stay here. So before I moved to Monterey, I've never lived anywhere for more than 4 years my entire life. And so really, I mean, Jane Parker was just such a huge inspiration of mine when I started paying more attention to local politics. And so thank you, Jane, for all of your amazing work. And then I'm honored to be on the panel today with 2 of my professors from CSUMB that helped me get my undergrad. And just as a selling point for CSUMB, I mean, my inspiration or my big motivator or my big thanks for CSUMB has been because of, in a huge way, because of the faculty and the way that they taught us. So anyways, I could go on and on about that, but just so many amazing people in the community that really made me feel like I could call this place my home. And so I just use that as a point with you all to just kind of share as an opportunity for us to all get connected and find a way of being able to support our community, and particularly here within the LGBTQ+ community. I think there's so much more that we can do. But that's not to take away from all the work that's currently being done, right? So one of the things that I was speaking to earlier about just the appreciation that I have for the current Pride group and everything that they are continuing to do. They started a scholarship program this year, and so to be able to give back, particularly to youth and folks that are trying to better themselves, it's just so amazing. It's such a beautiful thing to see continue to go and expand and do all the beautiful things. So anyways, I'll stop there for now, and I just am really honored to be here with you all today.
I don't feel that was 10 minutes. I want to open up. Is there anyone in the audience or on the panel, so this is an NCBI thing, who would like to give some acknowledgments or some appreciations for Tyler? This is one of our great leaders in the community.
Yes,
But does anyone feel moved to give appreciation for Tyler?
I'll say something.
Yes.
So, Tyler.
And this is Jane Parker.
Yeah, I was Jane Parker, so now I'm just a person. And I want to say, Tyler, that one of the things that makes it so easy for people to support you, rally around, whatever you're doing, is you have that love and compassion that you're talking about that made you not so compatible with the Navy and that militaristic environment, is that infectious enthusiasm that you have for life and people. From the moment I met you and heard what you were doing for your capstone, I was captivated. So here I am.
And I gotta say, love is so mutual. A little bit of a disclaimer, I asked Jane Parker to be on my panel for my capstone, which was healthcare town hall for young adults. So it was when the implementation of Obamacare was rolling out, and Dave Reichard was my advisor at CSUMB at the time, so just appreciate you right back.
Okay. And as promised, here's where my ADHD is showing up. I forgot the last slide because it was on the next page. So as if running a city was not enough, also in 2022, Tyler joined the boards of Community Foundation of Monterey County and the nonprofit known as Black Leaders and Allies Collaborative. And Tyler lives in a home on Franklin Street in Monterey that he bought with his partner Ivy. I am pressing start this time. Okay, now we're going to move on to Dave Reichard. So here's a quote from Dave about the Rainbow Raft Center at CSUMB. He says, "We have a plan, it's already been done," so it's in the past tense. Can you see it from there? You want to read it?
Read mine!
He wants who to read it? Me to read it, okay. So Dave says, how about you move your mouth and we'll do a ventriloquist act, okay? We have a plan to put a wall of CSUMB queer history here in the center, with images and photographs and documents, so students who come into the center know that they're standing on the shoulders of a whole generation of students who organized before them. Dave's local activism started when he arrived in 1999 to teach as a part-time lecturer at CSUMB. In his early years on campus, Dave served as a faculty advisor to the LGBT student organization All in the Family. Because many of the students at that time feared being out on campus, they had meetings in Dave's shared office, ideal since it had no windows. From that experience, Dave learned how important it is for the LGBT community to be and feel safe, to be and feel welcome, and to have a sense of belonging. In 2000, CSUMB LGBT community members, students, staff, and faculty organized on campus to help defeat Proposition 22, the Night Initiative. Despite the best efforts of these campus organizers, it passed and defined marriage in any California statute as only between one man and one woman. Dave worked with students to help them understand what that meant and how they needed to keep going, as organizing is a marathon, not a sprint. Another focus of Dave's organizing, promoting LGBT public history, emerged when he became involved with the GLBT Historical Society in San Francisco while commuting to work at CSUMB. It was at the Historical Society that Dave developed his understanding of the real organizing power of community-based history. So when the History Society decided to open a new GLBT History Museum, Dave stepped up as an associate curator for several exhibits, including one section on queer youth organizing, something he was inspired to do because of his work with students at CSUMB. He also served on the board of directors, including a term as co-chair. Dave left the board when he and his husband, Nelson, fully moved to the Monterey Peninsula in 2016. After coming back to Monterey County, Dave wanted to help make LGBT history matter in our own local communities. Building on his experiences in San Francisco, he co-founded the Monterey County LGBT History Project, which he began as a collaboration with Rainbow Speakers and Friends. After a successful launch at Father John's Church in Marina, folks began donating materials. Dave organized venues to make these local histories more visible in our community. For the 2 years that Monterey Peninsula Pride was held in Seaside, for example, he created displays of local LGBT history and for several years, and also worked with students in his LGBT history course to uncover local queer and trans histories. A new online exhibit showcasing the Monterey County LGBT History Collective is available at that link. And that link, by the way, since you can't click on it, right, is in one of the editions of Along the Rainbow, so another reason to get that. So let's talk a little bit about pride organizations. Dave's work with local pride organizations dates to his very first years here. After meeting local activists Matt Friday and Bruce Carlson in 1999, Dave got involved with Pride of Monterey County, which organized early Pride celebrations in the 1990s and the early 2000s. For Pride in 99 and 2000, Dave did everything from connecting Pride organizations with other CSUMB staff, faculty, and students, to creating flyers, to working the barbecue grill on the day of Pride. Once he moved to the area from San Francisco, Dave was one of the organizers and on the first board of Monterey Peninsula Pride, which sponsored the first Pride March and celebration in many years on the peninsula. Dave served on the planning committees for Pride in 2017 and 2018 when it was here in Seaside, and in 2019 when it moved to Monterey. Dave was one of the organizers for both virtual Pride celebrations during the pandemic in 2021, working with folks from all the local Pride organizations to ensure continuity of celebrations when they were unable to meet in person. Dave continues to volunteer with Monterey Pride today. In his last couple of years before retiring from CSUMB at the end of June 2024, Dave stepped up as co-lead of the LGBT Employees Affinity Group. More recently, Dave also served as the faculty director of the new Rainbow Raft Pride Center at CSUMB, a first for the campus. After a very successful launch event in May, the center is poised to become a hub for LGBT students and their allies on campus, a place to meet, gather, and host programs and events and provide resources. The culmination of Dave's organizing and research is the June 2024 publication of Here Are My People. Do you have the book here? Can you tell them the book? Which is on sale now at Amazon and in my newsletter. And so, of course, to Dave, you, of course, also have a certificate of appreciation. So, Dave Reichard. Anything you would like to say, Dave?
Thank you, Quazar. Boy, I don't know what to say. I think, like Tyler, I think just finding the folks in this community to be the inspiration for the work that I have done, mostly students, because I've been a professor for so long, has really been transformative. This book would not have happened, for example, without that work I did with students in the early 2000s, because I learned from them the challenges that they were facing in the early 2000s. I thought, why are they having these challenges? And how did this come about? So this particular book really is rooted in my experience working with those students. And I think there's a thread that kind of runs through the work I've been doing. It's about storytelling, about making histories visible, about people finding a sense of belonging and a sense of place. And I think history can do that. And I'm really convinced that public history is the way that we can actually have conversations about it. So I would encourage you to, I have a QR code for that exhibit with me. So afterwards, if you're interested and you want to check it out on your phone, you can do that. But the exhibit that's now on the library website is really rooted in this community. All the materials that came to CSUMB eventually from that project are from this community. For example, JT and Deb's involvement in Demeter. We have all those newsletters, well, pretty much, not all of them, but newsletters from that very important organization I think we're going to hear a little bit about from the late 70s through the late 80s, roughly. And just to be able to have that material available for everybody to look at and use gives you a sense of connection to that history. And it's particularly important for young people to be able to see a sense of continuity, that they're not the first to do something, and they're standing, as I always say, they're standing on the shoulders of a whole bunch of activists who came before them. And that's kind of intergenerational dialogue is really important to me. So I'm glad to be here to be part of this. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Let's
We were
see.
giving love.
What's that?
Oh, we're giving
Oh, give some love. Give some love. Who would like to give some love? Okay, very well.
They're fighting over it.
On behalf of Monterey Peninsula Pride, I would love to thank Dave and Quazar and Tyler, because without the three of you, we would not be able to be doing what we're doing. You laid an amazing foundation, and it was very great for me personally when I moved down here 6 years ago, just to be able to have an organization that was already going and be able to just join it and move in and keep going. So thank you very much. Also, the Rainbow Raft is just the most amazing thing ever, and so we're super excited about that as well. So thank you very much.
That's exactly what I was going to say. But I will add, thank you for your continued involvement. You've served your terms, you've set the groundwork, and you continue to show up for us. So that's not forgotten by us. Thank you so much.
Can I just say one more thing too?
No.
So when I was taking Dave's classes at CSUMB, honestly, one of the best experiences that I've had in a classroom, because how he would conduct the sessions was he might start off at the beginning with kind of giving instructions, maybe a little bit of a quick lesson, but then he would have us break into groups of 4 and talk with each other and learn from this small group, and then we would get into a circle and there would be like a talking stick, and we had to, like, you know, if somebody doesn't speak quite often, because, you know, there's always those ones like me that always have something to say, but like really sharing that space. And what was so powerful about that is really the opportunity for us to learn from each other, and so I think it just kind of weaves well into what his experience was in coming to the area, and just the appreciation of us all learning from each other. So love you lots.
I have a comment from one of our virtual participants.
Oh, thank you.
Eric Mora of Salinas Valley Pride wants to say that you are ageless.
Eric suggested.
Okay, so let's move on to Deb Busman. You see how I'm organized, right? You and then your professors, right? Okay, right. There's an order to things. So here's Deb's quote. My mom was an activist and union organizer, so my activism probably started in the womb, and most certainly in baby carriages on picket lines. She was active in civil rights and farm worker struggles, so growing up, I just assumed that fighting for justice was just what one did. Yes. Okay. So in 1978,
There's Polly.
so we can just forget the time. How it is. First Monterey Bay activism was in 1978, working to defeat the Briggs Initiative. We just heard about that, right? Along with lesbian comrades Mickey Welsh, Kathy Stoner, J.T. Mason, Beb Harrison, and Claire Parrish, and straight ally Dick Riley with the ACLU.
Mickey's here with us today too. I think I saw her back.
Where's Kathy? Kathy's here?
She came
Hey, next to me.
In 1978 through 1985, co-founded Demeter? Demeter Resources, a nonprofit women's organization dedicated to the growth of the feminist community and the development of women's culture in the Monterey Bay area. Worked as editor, typesetter, production, design artist. I'm going to go with etc., etc. She also worked to organize women's music events, bringing lesbian and feminist artists to the Monterey Peninsula. She also organized women's sporting leagues with beginner and advanced softball and baseball teams. 1994 to 2005, a founding member of the Monterey Bay area chapter of the National Coalition Building Institute, which was formed to promote grassroots leadership training and facilitate coalition building between community social action organizations. In 1995 through 99, she was the executive assistant of Friends Outside in Monterey County, a nonprofit prisoner advocacy organization. She assisted with the operation of the Community Prisoner Mother-Infant Program, Employment Program, etc., etc. She also wrote grants for corporate and United Way funding, prepared operational grants for continued contracting with the Federal Bureau of Prisons and the California Department of Corrections. 81 through 96, owner of Copyworks, a woman-owned, openly queer community print shop in Pacific Grove. She mentored and apprenticed young women entering the fields of offset printing and graphic design. In 2012, joined the advisory board for the Village Project, a nonprofit counseling and education center founded to strengthen families through the delivery of community-based, culturally specific services for the African American and other underserved communities in Seaside. Never heard of them. Oh, that's where we are. Oh, yes, the Village Project. Yay, the Village Project. CSUMB became a professor in 1999, the same time Dave
We came in together.
came in together.
Came out together.
Taught courses and presented at conferences on social action writing as a source of resistance and empowerment, claiming the traditionally marginalized voices and stories of queer and BIPOC folk. For those of you who don't know what that means, by Indigenous people of color. Coordinated writers from the Edge, visiting writer series, bringing folks on campus like, oh, I don't know, Angela Davis, Bell Hooks, you know, people like that. Organized Voices of Liberation with Black Panther leaders and writers of Mumbia, an evening of social action writing to raise awareness. She was also a coordinator of service learning for the Department of HCOM, served as a liaison between campus and Monterey, Seaside, Salinas, and Castroville communities. She is she's an author. Is that where the author is?
Back one.
Back one?
Two.
Back two? Oh, there we go. Okay. Author of an anthology of social action writing. In 2015, she published an autobiographical novel, Like a Woman, about queer kids coming of age on the streets of LA. Let's see, here's, this one I really want to say something about. Co-founder and faculty advisor of the CSUMB College chapter of the NAACP. One of the things that I remember most fondly about that time was Deb received the Civil Rights Advocate and Ally Award from the Monterey County branch NAACP for her dogged intervention in the case of Denise Jackson, an African-American CSUMB student who turned to the NAACP campus chapter for assistance. Ms. Jackson was wrongly discriminated against when she was kicked out of student housing due to a mutual altercation with her white roommate, who was not similarly asked to leave. Additionally, formal charges were filed against Ms. Jackson, and through the work of Deb Busman, it was ultimately determined, and I really want you to get that, it was only through the determined work of Deb Busman that it was determined that the original CSUMB police report was biased and the charges were dropped. In 2015, I said she published her novel, Like a Woman. I'm messing this up. Okay, and was all in 2016 became a Lambda finalist for the novel. And then here's one more quote from Deb about the book. She says, "I dedicate my book to all the kids and teens, queers and allies, who have and are currently living on the streets, making a way out of no way to find love and forge survival and resistance." And of course, we know that of the homeless population, LGBT make up a huge, way out of proportion, number of the homeless population. Deb Busman.
Okay, so I'm going to read a thing, and I'm going to probably go over time, so if you hear a beep, just ignore it. And I'll be quiet later, but yeah. So I was thinking about like everyday resistance, right? So there's the organizing, the political stuff, but then there's also just the everyday resistance of living our lives, living loud and proud and queer and funky. So I wanted to write about that and kind of take us back to those days of Copyworks and Demeter and my sister's house radio show, and because I'm old school like that and I'm old. So, okay. In those gay and heady women-loving days of Demeter Resources, JT's My Sister House radio show, and Copyworks, woman-owned, wink, wink, print shop, we ran wild through the mostly conservative, church-based, and military towns of Monterey County in the 70s and 80s. We danced raucous and sweaty to Donna Summer's Hot Stuff up at Mona's Gorilla Lounge, to Sister Sledge singing We Are Family under the funky disco ball at the After Dark gay bar. We romanced shy and bold in the back lot of the AD, rode our motorcycles to Seaside taxi, softball practice, filled the PG middle school auditorium with 500 plus lesbians, and a sweet scattering of gay boys, trans folks, bi folks, straight folks, and no doubt many more who had yet come into language with all their beautifully queer and fluid selves. To Holly Near, Meg Christian, Teresa Trull, June Millington, Sweet Honey, and The Rock, those were the days when we didn't know what we couldn't do, so we just did it all. We formed the nonprofit Demeter Resources, started a women's newspaper, produced concerts, and fielded basketball and softball teams. Mickey Welsh on the pitcher's mound, throwing strikes, Kathy receiving those strikes, Bettina Apteker, feminist Buddhist icon, throwing behind the plate, ripping off her catcher's mask, and storming the ump to challenge fans. Kate Bowie teaching us how to properly slide in the muddy fields out behind the MPC gym. Gretchen bravely coached us in basketball, and when we won the Monterey Rec League division, we got asked to fill in for a team at the high-powered Army-Navy postgraduate women's league. Like fools, we said sure, and showed up at the Fort Ord Army base before it was a university, standing stunned in the packed gymnasium before thundering stands of uniformed GIs. Us with our shorts and hairy legs and little black Demeter goddess holding the shaft of wheat t-shirts. As the Army team, I swear, all at least 6 feet tall, dressed in fancy matching warm-up gear, ran precision drills around us. Of course, we got our butts whooped in that game, but to our credit, we played with heart and gritty dyke courage and won the respect of the Army team and fans alike. After our regular day jobs, we wrote articles, sold ads, set type, and laid out copy for Demeter, a women's newspaper, sending galleys off to printers, outside printers, who would sometimes mess it up, all our beautiful work. So we shrugged, said, guess women are just gonna have to do it all. And not knowing shit about offset printing or running a business, Maureen McAvoy and I bought a little hole-in-the-wall print shop called Copyworks. The owner was supposed to teach me how to run press, but he just ghosted, leaving me alone with an aptly named A.B. Dick 360 and a pile of unfinished work orders. So I stayed there all night, broke down the press piece by piece, studied the manual, studied the gears, put it back together. By the next morning, had completed orders stacked by the front counter, ready for pickup. 2 years later, 2 years later, we would win the Best Printing in Monterey County Award for a 2-color type registration, full bleed, 11 by 17 poster that I didn't know couldn't be done on that kind of press. I'd never been taught what that press could not do. In those days, we organized, strategized, rallied, held board meetings, built coalition, wrote editorials, but there was also activism in our everyday resistance. Our simple acts of living and loving, lesbian, loud and proud in the world, activism in our joy, our dancing, playing ball, making community, making love, and we had the best straight allies one could ask for. Allies that, for many of us, were the first time we saw straight folks stand up for us. And that they would teach us in turn to learn to be better allies down the road for other groups. allies like, oh my gosh. So when Dick Riley, we gotta talk to Dick Riley from the ACLU, who was like sitting, yeah, just ignore it.
It's like the Oscars.
Almost there. Sitting with 7 lesbians in Bev and Claire's living room, organizing to stop the 1978 Briggs Initiative, which sought to ban gays and lesbians and those who supported them from California classrooms. Fred and Ann Jealous and their son Ben, who at the time was just a 16-year-old working in a print shop, like all the lefty babies did. But would grow up to be the civil rights activist and fierce loving ally of queer folks that we all know and love. And of course, Polly Parker, aka Mom, the supervisor Jane Parker, and Annie Parker, and Carrie Parker. But she served on the board of Demeter Resource, and she was always the one, when we planned those wild lesbian concerts, she'd put on her pearls and go secure the permits. From the PG City and School Board, administrators unaware that those events would soon be filled with hundreds and hundreds of queer folks living loud and proud. We also had unexpected allies, like the loyal Copyworks customers we so lovingly called Cotton Tops. Never Cotton Tops. The white-haired church-going elders who stood by us when Jerry Falwell's right-wing Christian Voice organization threatened to firebomb our print shop because we refused to Xerox their flyers calling for the execution of all prostitutes and homosexuals in Monterey and Salinas. We were fearless in our love and activism, but we were not naive. We knew that death threats and firebomb threats from Christian Voice were not idle. We knew that those behind Briggs wanted gays and lesbians removed from more than just the classroom. We knew that simple noontime, rare sunny day walk across Lighthouse Avenue heading to a Chamber of Commerce meeting could be interrupted by a bunch of happy, rowdy PG High football players honking their horns, waving banners from the back of the pickup truck, celebrating their recent championship and shouting, "Hey, fucking lesbo, yeah, you fucking faggot bitch," as they spotted you crossing the street. Yeah, we danced wild and free and flirted shamelessly in the back lot of the AD. But we knew well the slashed tires, broken windshields, and drunken yahoos with bats and slurs and internalized loathing that often waited just outside the bar. And so when we walked out those doors into the night, we always walked out together. Our queer resistance took many forms and was often as fierce and imperfect as our love. Bodies carried memories along with butch resistance. And so you could just be riding your motorcycle one August evening above the Monterey Bay, taking the shortcut through the Presidio before 9/11 closed it down. Your girlfriend, Babs, riding on the back of your bike, her arms wrapped around you, feeling strong, peaceful, and happy, when 4 off-duty soldiers stepped from the curb to flag you down, laughing, shouting out, "Hey, what do we have here? Look, it's a couple of fucking dykes on bikes." And you feel the bile rising, the sudden clench of fear drowned out by rage, and you feel your bones ache with memories of steel-toed boots to the chest, and just as you are fighting the urge to throw down in a stupid brawl you would no doubt lose, your femme girlfriend releases her grip from your waist, leans back in the seat, turns to the guys, and gives them her best gay boy meets Princess Diana wave, saying, "Oh, you got that right, honey." Dykes on bikes all the way, baby. And suddenly everyone, including you, laughs. And you throttle up instead of down and roar off into the night. Your lover once more leaned into your back, her arms circled again around your waist, hands pressed up against your chest, holding you tight.
Thanks a lot.
You got 12 seconds.
Okay, good.
You know, I feel like you could have a career as a writer.
Yeah.
Appreciations for Deb, if any woman likes.
I use them all the time, that's all right.
Going once? Oh, yes.
I couldn't just sit there and not appreciate that. I think we met in about 1970, I don't know, 5 or something like that, and we've been great friends ever since. And I've suddenly remembered all those years of copy works, walking across the parking lot to get our copy work done, and just having the camaraderie that we had in those days. And Deb, it has been amazing to see all that you've done, and to go over that right here today. And think, yeah, that's my Deb.
No, I'm kidding.
Get it over with.
Okay, we're moving on to, is it Jungle Tiger?
Yes, it's Jungle Tiger, yeah.
JT Mason.
All right.
JT Mason grew up as a Unitarian Universalist, and she says, part of your DNA when you are raised that way is social action. We have 7 principles, one of which is the belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all. So, to put my faith into action is to be a community organizer. As a young adult, JT began her community organizing within the women's movement. She was instrumental in creating the vibrant and thriving women's community in the Monterey Bay area. In 1978, she co-founded Demeter Resources, a nonprofit organization which focused on women and lesbians' rights. Demeter also promoted women's athletics, sponsoring entry-level advanced women's softball and basketball teams. JT was named one of Monterey County's outstanding women by the Commission on the Status of Women in 1992. Between 1995 and 2000, she sat on the national board of the Association of Women's Music and Culture. JT began her career in public radio. Hosting a variety of shows on KAZU and KUSP starting in 1979. JT worked for 28 years at KAZU as the longtime programmer of My Sister's House, Monday Morning Folk, and the Roadside Cafe. JT also has 3 decades worth of association with the Monterey County chapter of the National Coalition Building Institute. In 1990,
That's accurate right there.
can we see a before and after? Would you like to? In 1999, JT and her wife Gretchen became the first openly same-sex couple to legally adopt a child in Monterey County. In 2001, she began working as a youth counselor and teacher at the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Monterey Peninsula, working extensively with children and youth educational programs. She was also very involved in the congregation's anti-racism and anti-oppression efforts. As part of her commitment to anti-racism work, JT contributed to the anthology Combined Destinies, Whites Sharing Grief About Racism in 2013. In 2015, she co-founded 2 different organizations, Whites for Racial Equity and Palenke Arts. Like many of other local community activists, JT attended the vigil called by the Monterey County branch NAACP on the steps of Seaside City Hall in response to the murder of 9 worshipers at AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. At the vigil, Ann Todd Jellis challenged white folk in attendance not to return to their lives as usual following the vigil. JT really hurt her, and so she brought together local white activists to found Whites for Racial Equity, where she has served on the steering committee since its inception. Whites for Racial Equity has served as a launching pad for white folk to get involved as allies in backing the efforts of organizations that serve people of color, such as the NAACP, the Village Project, and Palenke Arts. Palenke Arts was co-founded with Juan Sanchez and a committed group of activists and educators to address the issue of inequity in the arts by imbuing their programs with high-interest, culturally relevant art and music programs. JT served as the founding board president. Following the 2016 Pole Street Massacre,
You're doing good.
I'm only pausing for how serious this part is, but so following the 2016 Pole Street Massacre of LGBT people of color at the Orlando Gay Nightclub, JT joined local efforts to build greater activist networking capacity within the queer community by working to establish the nonprofit Monterey Peninsula Pride. JT has provided years of support for Salinas Valley Pride as well. Other community organizing has included board membership on, I put T, on the YMCA, where she played a part in the launch of its domestic violence crisis line and the creation of the Mildred Lawson Safe House for Women and Children. Several years volunteering for Hospice of the Central Coast, many years as a foster volunteer for Animal Friends Rescue Project, for which she has nurtured countless litters of kittens and for which she adopted several rescue pups and kittens over the years. Holly Neer says of JT that 28 years at KAZU, there was also the aspect of how JT presented herself to the public. An out lesbian, living a busy life, loving a partner, adopting a child, doing social change work. In some cases, her very presence on air, her humor, her open heart saved lives. Congratulations.
Okay, can I have this
JT.
Thank you.
Anything you'd like to say?
I can't tell you what you all do to feed my soul. I look out there and so many of you are comrades that I've had for years. They were, Mickey helped us get Cassidy. She took us through the whole process, so when we went before the judge, we found a good judge. I was ready, we had studied.
We waited for the right judge.
We waited for the right judge. We kept saying, not yet, not yet. We're like, okay, because we wanted to do it as an out lesbian couple. We didn't want to do one and hide, because that just wasn't the right way. So we were ready. Now we go up before the judge, and the judge says, I just have one question. Bring it. Don't you think you're a little old? And now I see his point. You get up and down off those floors and those long meetings and all the time.
That was the impression you were expecting.
I think being community organizer has been such a salve for me, like so many of us here. There was a lot of loneliness and fear growing up gay in Southern Ohio in the late 50s, early 60s. And even though I came from a progressive, loving family, they didn't know what to do with me. I didn't know what to do with me. So there's all these sad holes and things that you think you're getting rid of as you make friends and you do your work. But when I work with the kids at Palenke, I work at the kids at Unitarian Universalist Church, they fill in. They get, all of a sudden I'm more whole because I did that work. And I know what I would have wanted had I been a kid like that, because the kids are facing so many different things than we ever did. And God bless you all for taking on that and doing that. So I'm not really sure where I'm going with it, other than it's been as much a blessing for me as it is for the community. I love seeing you all out there, and we just got to hang in there. We got some tough times right coming. So the more we bond together, and whatever our othering and belonging is, I think we'll win. There's a lot of joy in this room. And I know, I'm looking at you, Carrie. Cheers for all of us, I believe, are probably right there. When you think about the things in the news, you think about what you went through as a kid being different. But look at the joy and the power that's in this room. And so I thank you for giving that to me. I'm happy to be part of that. So thank you very much. And Quazar, thank you for putting this on.
Appreciations for JT.
Okay, you can have a puppy.
Anyone?
Yeah. Anyone else want to talk about my mom before Yeah. A lot of kids, I've been told, have the realization that their parents aren't literally perfect when they're like 8, 9, 10. I'm still grappling with that at 26. My mother leaves a very long shadow. I grew up, Mom likes to joke that I went from being JT's daughter to her being Cassidy's mom. That's not true. Not in a room like this, not in the scheme of history. My mom will be remembered, not partially because of David's work, partially because of people like you who also keep her story alive, and partially because she herself fought to have a story worth telling. Of all of my friends, I am probably the one with the best relationship with my parents. I've won every game of Never Have I Ever by being able to say, never have I ever had to hide my sexuality from my parents. I grew up in a house full of art and history and music. The queer community, anti-racism work has always been part of my life because it has always been part of her life and has always been part of her mother's life, and I could not be more grateful.
Anyone have, I'd like an insulin shot.
I have a more sobering appreciation. So everybody on this panel has participated in helping make Monterey Peninsula Pride a thriving organization now. And I have a background in development, so I'm going to say how much we deeply appreciate your participation as a major donor to our organization. It changes everything for us to have the confidence to throw something like our celebration that we're going to have next week and know that we can pay for it. We can pay for queer performers, we can pay for queer people to help put it on, and we can participate in the greater economy. And we're not afraid, we're not operating from scarcity, and you help make that possible. Thank you so much.
Okay. Oh, well, I'm going. Go
I paid him on.
It's sort of specific to JT, but also about this whole group. When I left Monterey and I lived in San Francisco, and you're thinking you're just all that, and you go to these protests, and then I'm in Monterey, and it's the first Gulf War, and it's me, JT, and Joyce Vanderveer in front of Colton Hall with a bunch of Marines on the other side of the street, and you think, there's being a presence in a place that's not very big is a whole different thing than thinking you're really groovy in a big city where there's more than 3 people that show up. And so to show up when you don't know if you're going to be the only one there is a tribute to all of you guys that come to a place like this and find good and try and keep good here. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Our final panelist, Father John Perez. And I should say that of all the people up here, Father John is the first activist. I'm going to call him an activist, although he doesn't. I don't think he actually uses that term. But you're the first person that I've met, and so I've known you. I think since 2000, and certainly since 2008, and perhaps before.
Did I have hair then? Did I have hair?
Nope. Neither did I. So here's a quote from Father John. It says, "To the degree that I became a, quote, activist, it was simply to have the right to hold my partner when he was dying." John Perez grew up in a religious culture as opposed to a religious family. In fact, as a child, he experienced religion as a refuge from an abusive, dysfunctional family. He came to the recognition that he was gay after high school when he found himself in a relationship with a man, a relationship that he eventually recognized as a gay relationship.
Took a while to get there.
I feel like this means something about me.
3 years later.
Following a horrific car accident in 1986, John Perez moved back to the Monterey Peninsula from San Diego in order to be closer to his family. John's partner at the time, Michael Williams, was HIV positive, and John soon began volunteering at the Monterey County AIDS Project. In 1992, John participated with 10,000 protesters in Washington, D.C. in a successful attempt to prevent cuts to AIDS funding. It was also one of the last times the AIDS quilt was displayed in full. It's just too big now. Like many gay couples during the height of the AIDS epidemic, John found that because there was no legal recognition of his partnership with Michael, he had no rights that he could exert when Michael was dying in hospice in 1990. An incident with a homophobic nurse who freaked out about John comforting his partner in his sick bed led to a lawsuit in which John won a settlement that allowed him to occupy an apartment at the hospice to support his partner after visiting hours. John took over Michael's position on the National Gay and Lesbian Board of the ACLU after he passed in 1991. John was working as a support manager of Gin Air kitchen appliances when Michael died. The cultural climate of the time was such that he could not tell anyone what he was going through at that time. John's subsequent corporate jobs included stints at Raytheon and General Electric. John had an epiphany a few years later when he was helping at the altar at an Episcopal church in Washington. He realized that this is what he is meant to be doing, and he entered seminary in Seattle, where he was on track to become a regional priest. Don, John's partner at the time, was also dying of AIDS, and became so angry in his final days that he canceled his insurance, leaving John with $250,000 of debt when he passed in 1995. In February 1996, John officially became a social worker for MCAP, Monterey County AIDS Project, where he managed the AIDS Drug Assistance Program. Also in 1996, although not yet ordained, John was made the Vicar of Epiphany Episcopal Lutheran Church in Marina. He was clear at the time that he might not proceed to priesthood because he was gay, and he recognized that some bishops were simply not going to ordain a gay person. Nevertheless, Epiphany thrived under John's leadership. His congregation is the largest social service NGO facilitator serving Marina. Epiphany programs include the Thomas Carmen Food Pantry and Senior Breakfast Program. Over the years, Epiphany has hosted Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, supported court-mandated anger management classes, and stored tents and sleeping bags in their emergency closet for the homeless in collaboration with Marina Police and the Interfaith Homeless Emergency Lodging Program, IHELP. After years of internal struggle, the Episcopal Church began officially ordaining gay priests in 2005, including Father John Perez. In conjunction with his service at Epiphany, Father John also serves as the senior chaplain for CSUMB and also served on the Lutheran Episcopal Coordination Committee and as an advisor to the Department of Defense military chaplains on LGBT plus pastoral care, for which he was recognized by the Obama White House. Father John is especially proud of Epiphany's cultural and political diversity. About 15 to 20% of the congregation is queer, and indeed Epiphany became a spot for the queer community to gather. From 1998 to the mid-2000s, Epiphany hosted World AIDS Day commemorations with MCAP and John the 23rd Ministries. Notably, vigils were held at Epiphany for both the 2016 Pulse Street Massacre in Orlando and the 2022 Club Q shooting in Colorado Springs. Monthly meetings of Rainbow Speakers and Friends have been hosted by Epiphany for years. Father John has also served as a board member of the Lesbian and Gay Rights Northern California chapter of the ACLU and as a club advisor for the Pride Club at CSUMB. He is a proud recipient of the 2009 Ralph Atkinson Civil Liberties Award from the Monterey County ACLU for his work supporting marriage equality and civil rights for all during the campaign against Proposition 8. Father John is currently celebrating 22 years with his husband, Robert Munoz. Yes, that's fine.
That's a tremendous burden he carries.
That's a tremendous burden he carries.
You have no idea.
He navigates the world with the help of his guide dog, Arlington. Father John, Robert, and Arlington will soon be retiring to Spain. I do want to say that I had wanted, Father John, when we started Monterey Peninsula Pride, one of the things that I wanted to do was have a spiritual welcoming, interfaith welcoming, and Father John is the person who started that. I would have loved, once I heard that he was moving on to Spain, I would love him to have had his, to be honored at our Pride celebration, because it would be his last here in Monterey. And so instead we're honoring you here. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything you would like to share?
Well, first, thank you for having my name here in case I got confused. Thank you. I'm also one of the people who's heading out of CSUMB. This is my last year at CSUMB, so I'm not sure who's turning the lights off. But I'll be leaving soon. You know, one thing, I always think of myself more as a facilitator or connecting the dots rather than an activist. And one of the things that we always keep forgetting to mention, and I think it's really important, is the Thomas Carvet Food Pantry, which is based out of Epiphany. It's a separate nonprofit. It is one of the largest food programs for food distribution in Monterey County. We do over 4,000 people a month there. And that was founded basically by the LGBT community of Monterey. Because of Epiphany being an inclusive congregation, John the 23rd AIDS Ministry, and those who remember Joni Chapel and her work in the community was the big go-getter. And we actually used to have queer nights or queer days of volunteers. So, you know, the history of our LGBT community is also about doing public good. So that's, you know, I think is a really important thing to remember on it. So, and since I'm the introvert, I think that's what
Appreciations for Father John.
Can I say something? So when we were organizing the history project, we were kind of finding donations. Father John reached out to me, and Robin Guthrie, who was the archivist at CSUMB. I have these bins of material from John the 23rd, AIDS Ministries. Do you think that would be interesting? So Robin and I went over to the church, and they are a treasure trove of photographs documenting the history of this community for about 20, I think it's almost 10, 20 years, and all kinds of other amazing materials. that would have ended up in the trash if Father John had not called us, and is now living in an archive and will be accessible to the community. But I just want to thank Father John for sharing that with us.
And, personal thank you is, I think the most important part about being involved is showing up. And, you've showed up. And there have been some events where there was just a handful of us, and you were there to show up. And I think that is probably the most important thing we can do, whether it's for the good things and for the bad things, the difficult things, is showing up.
Mickey.
Oh, I just want to say, I might be one of the only people here who first met John because he came to repair my refrigerator. What I actually want to honor John for right now is the work that he did and the courage and perseverance that he had within the Episcopal Church to become a gay priest.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have no idea what it was like earlier on to be a gay person in the Episcopal Church, which Kathy and I are also. And there were no women priests, there were certainly no gay priests, until people like Father John stepped up and just persevered and continued and stayed for the benefit of everybody, all of us, of every faith. Thank you.
Yeah.
The people, those wonderful Christian death threats that we received. And,
Just like that.
it made you have to really make some tough decisions. One particular death threat, apparently they weren't sure what my ability was to read, so they included pictures. And, you just have to sort of make peace with yourself on that. So, that was a very difficult time to know that there may be people out in the parking lot waiting for you. So, yeah. Thank you, Mickey. And by the way, the parts will be in.
The supply chain's a little bit broken.
So I just want to say, in addition to what others have said, but as an illustration too, Marina is a town of retired military. And so Father John and the Episcopal Lutheran Church is the open heart of Marina, and it's attracted those people in Marina who are interested in the public good, and then also people from the broader community. And it's because of Father John and your openness, your perseverance, your, just who you are and how openly you are, just like the others on this panel. There's something so life-giving about that. So thank you for helping us.
As the spouse.
Exit stage right.
One is correction, 28 years. He never keeps up. But in the collection of things that were being brought in, so they could all get to David to do his beautiful work. And I was working and I came in and Father John tells me, oh, you should have seen all this stuff they brought in from John 23rd. I was a volunteer there. And so he was in his office, I went to go look, and my gosh, there were just boxes, and I couldn't believe it. He says, there's pictures in there, pictures? My God, there were so many pictures. So while he's doing his thing, I said, well, let me just pull an album, and I'm going through, and some pieces I remember, and others is like, God, I don't remember these people at all. And by luck, there was a picture. On the very first day we met, they had taken it for a newsletter.
Sweet.
And the difference was that, okay, this is not going, I have that. How many of us have pictures of the very first day you met? So I have that. It's not in the collection, but I do have it. I want to scan.
So I want to do a bit of housekeeping and check with the crowd now. So we're about a half hour over. So we can do either of two things, I think. We can either just have a panel conversation, which and if we do, I would love it to be about how we're going to support the Pride Center and get actual activism really happening in the face of everything that's happening. Or we could open up, because it's been such a lovely back and forth, we could open it up, because who knows when we'll have these 5 people here together again. We can just simply open it up for Q&A from the crowd. So, guys, raise your hand if you want to do Q&A.
I want them to ask.
Or raise your hand if you want to just see a panel discussion.
That's 50-50. You did help yourself.
Start with the panel discussion. I'm sure people will jump in.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong.
Always do.
I know.
Some of you can
Well then, so what's really, at least what's up in my heart, and one reason why I wanted to do this. So last year, as I've been doing these panel discussions for a while now, and most of them have been like this in terms of the just having a joy, having a blast. Last year was the first time I was like we have to take what's going on in the world very seriously now. I mean, particularly for our transgender community. Transgender community is the main community that is under threat all over this country right now. And so I think that we have to remember that the original the Stonewall Rebellion was a rebellion. It was so in that first Pride, it wasn't just about celebrating ourselves, and that's something we always have to do. 2 things when it comes to marginalized communities. One is you have to celebrate because your celebration is the antidote to all of the oppression that comes your way. Because as LGBT people, we get thousands and thousands of messages through our lives that we are criminal, that we are sinful, that we are crazy, all this type of stuff. And so the antidote to that is to prance around on Pride and say we're the most fabulous things that ever lived. That's exactly what it is. But that's half of the work. The other half of the work is we have to fight to protect ourselves, right? And we have to organize, because right now the right, particularly the religious right, is very, very organized to suppress us, and to the degree that they are able to put us back into the closet. And the fact that we have lost Roe versus Wade, that has been overturned, you know that they are going to try to overturn marriage equality at the first available opportunity. Yeah. So we have some really rough times coming our way. And so I want to open up the conversation with, I don't know who wants to start, but what do we need to do here in Monterey County to revitalize activism and have a counterpoint to what's headed our way and already here?
Mayor Williams.
Well, I mean, I think it's obviously such a slippery slope. I mean, we've seen what's happened with this current Supreme Court in regards to women's rights, and it's very clear what their interests are in regards to LGBTQ rights. And we frame the conversation in the way of marriage equality, but there's so much more that exists there. I mean, we can look at what's happened to people that participate in the drag community, the trans community. JT, appreciate you wearing the shirt.
Thank you.
And so there's so much work to do. And I wanted to jump in and actually give love to each of you, but I also know that I talk a lot, so I was careful not to step back as I learned from Dave's class. But when I hear Father John's story, you know, and to see everything that he's gone through. I mean, I think you are just the perfect example of it doesn't matter what life puts you through, you still have a space to step forward, use your voice, and do something to help the community. We all go through things. We all do. But the more of us that step forward, it takes that burden off of the ones that are doing it. And it gives, you know, it's like that I'm not sure if you all saw this video in a park. There's like one person gets up on the hill and starts dancing, and then before you know it, the hill is full of people dancing. And just to imagine yourself in that space of dancing, not by yourself, is just so powerful. And so I just really encourage us all to feel a part of it. And if there is one person standing on the street corner with a sign displaying hate, we still have work to do. If it was just one person, we have work to do. Because that one person, the impact that they can have on who knows who's driving by and the message that is received. There was something earlier in this conversation too that made me think about this, but we just have to be really careful of making sure that we're doing everything that we can to push back against the hate and continuing to spread the love. I consider myself an empath, so I might be like more of the warm and fuzzy type, but gosh darn it, we need more of that in the world. We do. We really need more love and kindness and compassion in this space, and so I'm gonna continue doing my part until, gosh darn it, the day I die. And I really feel like I'm on a group here of folks that I stand on their shoulders in a lot of ways. So I thank each and every one of you that have done so much work, because it made it easier for people like me to step into this space and help contribute to the work that you guys have already been doing. So, yeah.
2 comments, first from Mel and then over here.
So I want to yes and what's happening here. So I just want to honor the fight that has been done to create equality in marriage. So I want to yes and that to remind everybody that there is a huge fight for people being able to affirm their identity. So this is the next wave. We have a huge deficit of people being able to live freely and affirm their identity. And to broaden that binary. And so I don't want that to be lost when we talk about making sure to preserve and expand the rights of LGBTQ plus people.
And you wanted to say something over here?
Yeah, so I'm a mother of an LGBTQI plus transgender biracial student who is living with also a disability, who attends PG high school and has grown up in the PG school district since birth, or preschool. So, I mean, oftentimes I go to the meetings, the district meetings alone, and we could really use support there whenever decisions are being made, because it's really difficult to stand alone in those meetings and have to speak for the community. And there is a lot of pushback in the community where we see recently there were some actually, really nice changes where the progressive flag is now being flown at each site of the schools, and some of them are under construction right now, so that's why they aren't being flown, because no one's there. But there have been delays at certain sites, which I have gone up to the district several times to speak up and make sure that they're, moving forward to speed things along, which they did at Robert Down. But down the street there's also, you see a church that says, well, if you need to find God, then look at your GPS and fix the problem. And that's also very concerning to me, because that speaks to then how do we mobilize and make sure that there's housing security, because there's an intersection to class then too. Individuals who need that security, and they're afraid to speak up, because then what does that mean if they look on the GPS and they go, oh, well, I see this person lives here. Oh, well, let me go talk to so-and-so, and is it a dog whistle to, create problems in their life? And so there are a lot of issues in the religious community specifically, and it's not just PG. So how do we create housing opportunities that have stability, and so that we can create more opportunity and people feel secure to speak up? But then also it's about showing up And so, yeah, anyway.
Can I just really quick point out that it might be good for you two to connect because of his Along the Rainbow newsletter. It can help get the word out about those types of events.
Yeah. Father John, did you want to say? I thought I saw you.
Yeah, one of to what you were saying about conservative churches and religion right now in Monterey County, it's always a really difficult challenge because one, how many of the LGBT community has been hurt by religion and churches. And yet at the same time, the progressive, the broad, the liberal churches need the support and the voice of the LGBTQ community more than ever. You know, and it's not going to help. You know, I realize I've got a dog in this fight, so. But, you know, he brings them in, and it's not going to help by standing outside the church. That we need people in. You know, one of the largest churches here in Monterey County is on a spending spree right now. Most conservative churches out there, largest. I won't mention Compass's name. But you know, we've got bunny rabbits jumping out of helicopters, and we have a 4th of July extravaganza and things like that to try to bring people in to their way of thinking. And it seems all very mild and simple and sweet, but there's a huge agenda that's very well funded on that. And we often think of ourselves as being very protected here in Monterey County from a liberal standpoint. But you know, there's some serious forces to look at. And if we can just figure out a way to help with the healing for the broad and progressive and mainline churches with the LGBT community, and you know, because in a certain way we need each other right now going forward on that.
I'm going to let this person here speak, and then I'd like to make a comment as well.
Thank you. I'm a retired school teacher living and working in Salinas, and I am a member of the Rainbow Friends and Rainbow Speakers and Friends, and I encourage each and every one of you to volunteer and join us. The monthly meetings have been at the Epiphany Church, but we go out and speak when we're invited at schools from elementary to university, and at community events. We're having one at a center in Salinas. And Salinas and South County especially, our LGBT communities there are really threatened by a lot of cultural things, including religion. And one concern of ours has been that in Spreckles and Marina also, parents who were these fundamentalist Christians have tried to fire LGBT teachers or allies, teachers who are allies and trying to protect children who are trans in their schools. And so we can't just think, I mean, I grew up in Mississippi, but we can't assume it's only in Texas and East or whatever, you know. It's here in Monterey County, and I heard this Kazoo Monterey Pride board members speaking a couple days ago, and they said, you know, we're putting a new decal in the businesses that support us. Instead of the rainbow, we're saying, be queer here. And yet we live in a bubble in Monterey Peninsula, and I would assume including Seaside, is in a bubble as far as the LGBT community. I can wear my rainbows and not feel threatened. I can, you know, be open about my sexuality. But in Salinas, if I do that, my gay friends tell me, oh no, don't do that. We went to Spreckles for the 4th of July last year, and they said, get rid of all your rainbows. It's like this extreme hatred and bigoted attitude in Monterey County, and yet we don't have enough speakers available in the rainbow speakers, and we really need you. I have contact information for one of the board members. I'm not sure if Father John has that information as well, probably. But find out how to contact rainbow speakers and friends and allies and volunteer to be a speaker, and you will help Monterey County more than you can imagine.
Thank you. I want to follow up on a couple of things. First of all, raise your hand if you have ever been to a local faith community, church, synagogue, what have you, that is welcoming of LGBT people. Okay, look around for those of you in the front. There are a lot of hands raised. Okay, so I think one of the things that I'd like to commit to doing, and I started actually at one of these panels before I made a commitment to work within the black community. So I started the Historically Black Church Tour just because I'm an out gay person, so that could shift things, and it has to some small degree. I think one of the things that we need now is we need to start organizing our LGBT welcoming faith communities such that we can have, so that when we have anti-LGBT talking points that become publicized, that we have an immediate answer, right? Because it's like people are always going to put out this hate, and we need people from the faith community as an opposite to that. So that's something that years ago I started a ranking of churches. I think there were 6 or 7 rankings. And by church I mean faith community, whatever the community happens to be. From what I'm calling euphemistically the loving opposition, all the way up to not only welcoming but celebratory. So I would like to get together a progressive spiritual leaders to create something around that, so that we can have a counterpoint to that. In terms of I do think that, and speaking to the fact that, or the feeling that some people have that they are more safe perhaps in Monterey or some other places in the community, if there are places where we feel that we are less safe, those are places that we need to occupy more. Because the only antidote to that is you have to show up where you're not wanted. And for people to acclimate to you, you have to sometimes just show up, because they're not going to come to you. So I think it's really important that we do work out there. And there was something else, but it went out of my mind. Yes.
I have a question for you. The archive that you have, is it digitized? And if it's not, are you going to digitize it? Because I'm from Oregon, and I would love to pick my fingers through your magazines and all those photos and, as I say, everything else that you have stashed away in your archives.
I wish it was mine.
That's where the big money is.
That's a great question. The collection is physically housed at CSU Monterey Bay in the special collections, but they have digitized a good amount of some of the materials. So Demeter, every issue that we have of Demeter, for example, has been digitized and is available. I have my QR code. You can come up later. Where it is. And there was a newspaper called The Paper, some of you might remember this, that was funded by Monterey County AIDS Project. All the issues that we have of that publication have been digitized. And then a few other things too.
Is it professional persons?
Oh yeah,
network?
PPN.
PPN?
Yeah.
And the Peninsula Professional Network was an some of you might remember that too. That was an organization, LGBT sort of professionals organization. Have those newsletters, they have not been digitized, but those are available at the library. So it's kind of a mix. The challenge is digitizing is time consuming, and in libraries you must do high quality scans, and so it takes a bit of time. But I think that will be a project for the future, something to work on.
I was just wondering, since we're on, Dave, if you could talk more about your book.
Okay. What do I say? All right, let me just...
Sell it, girl.
I'm not very good at this. It's not really my forte. Okay, this book is a history of a generation of LGBT student activists who were organizing on college campuses in California from the late 1960s through the end of the 1970s. So it's really the first generation of students that did this publicly on campus. There were of course, students before the 1960s who were on campus. This is a generation that's coming up in the age of the anti-war movement, the civil rights movement, and they're getting that energy and they're kind of organizing themselves on campuses. So the book chronicles that history in California across a variety of different campuses. So everything from community colleges to private universities like Stanford, to the UC, to the Cal States. And it sort of compares across different campuses the kind of organizing that they were doing. So for example, there's a chapter on how they are organizing events on campus, educational events, cultural programs, the kind of organizations that they create, the curriculum that they're trying to get integrated into universities, in women's studies programs, and it's something called the experimental colleges, which were student-directed courses, and they kind of organized their own thing, usually funded by student government. So there's some of the very first LGBT courses on college campuses came out of those. So it kind of looks at that. Looks at struggles for recognition. Many of those groups were denied recognition by universities in the early years, particularly up to about 1975. There were some very notable cases, including lawsuits that students had to sue the universities to get a club on campus. That's all that was about. So there's a chapter on that. So it kind of looks at how they organized, what they cared about, and what kind of impact they had on the university. So I got inspired by working with students, so that's really where this.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thank you, Dave.
I'd like to do a shout out to, speaking of our rainbow speaker friend here, I want to give out shout out to JT. I think about a year ago, you sent out a message. I can't remember if it was Carmel, it was either Carmel or Pacific Grove, really asking people to come to one of the board meetings because people were being mistreated in that community. And so that makes me think that, I think one of the things that would be useful for us to do is to to create some sort of action volunteer committee. So that we have a pipeline, so everyone has their ears open to when a support is needed, and that we already have volunteers who will commit to showing up at the drop of the hat. So I think that's one of the kind of practical things that we could do.
I think another good example was the Spreckles whole incident, and Spreckles School District was another time when we needed voices in that space too. So I think there's definitely a need there.
The letters to the newspaper are underutilized. And there is a group that has gotten very active, there's usually 3 or 4, but they'll write anything. And they really been going after the DEI information, they went after Angelus and Caroline Haskell, they did a class. We can't just let that go. We don't have to go after the people writing it, but we have to keep saying and putting it forth, because you think, oh, this is so stupid, no one's going to believe it. That's just not true. We have to stand up, and it's a very simple way to do it. So I know the Pinecone and the Herald and the Weekly love it. Post them.
In our last few minutes, I have a general question. So I'm thinking that for those of us who are over 60, so not you. but many of us, you know, we've lived some time, and so we have lived in a time when it was worse, when we didn't have much of the things that we have now. And now we're living in a time where a lot of our gains are being lost or clawed back. So general question to the panel, for those of you like who had so much to do with us gaining the ground that we gained. Any comments on or things that we need to remember and recall from that earlier activism that perhaps I often think about intergenerational reciprocity, and so there may be activist skills that we have that have been atrophied because we haven't had to necessarily do it as much for this specific community. Any comments about or words of wisdom for younger activists from the work that you've done in the past?
Well, let's not forget that our age group did have to live through Prop 8, and that was many of our first voting terms.
All right.
Good point.
On the same night that Obama won, it was such a strange juxtaposition because we're so excited, and then what? Yeah. That was
So it's been a traumatic walk back, I'd say, for our generation as well. Sorry to interrupt.
I would like to see more intergenerational conversation in the LGBT community. I look at some of the organizations that we have here in Monterey County, and that are doing very strong work for youth. And I don't know how much of a bridge we have with them to share our experiences or make sure that we're on the same advocacy page. What's important to them and what's important to us. And maybe that's the place to start, is having an intergeneral conversation about, do we have shared priorities
If I could just say, as the youngest member of the band, I think,
as always.
well, and I mean, to that point, right, like, I feel I've learned a lot along this experience from folks that are even younger than I am. And so I echo the sentiment. I think it's important to have folks part of every generation in these conversations, because even though there might be a lot of history and knowledge associated with folks in older generations, there's an experience that provides a different lens that's important for us to understand. So anyways, I just kind of echo the sentiments around like the intergenerational conversation.
Because I walk towards the gay tar pit.
Forgive me for taking another few moments to talk about my mom.
Okay.
Let's see where this goes.
One of the many things I'm grateful for is that being raised by queer people, I was given a window into my queer elders, into the generation that came before me, that a lot of people growing up, other young queer kids in my friend groups, didn't really have. The way that my mom grew up feeling like she was alone in her queerness is echoed also in my generation. And I was incredibly lucky that there is a generational divide, but I was allowed a bridge. So many of people in my age range growing up as queer people grew up on the internet. We found our communities in Tumblr, in Discord, in all of these different social media sites, and we forged words for who we are, and we found little spaces. But those spaces didn't include people who didn't have accounts. It's true, but because of that, we've missed a lot of your wisdom. And finding ways to bridge those gaps is incredibly important. Finding ways to get your stories to people my age. I've found myself recommending the music of Holly Near to young kids.
Everyone that will listen.
Oh, you know your mother's done.
Once you catch it,
Molly
yes.
Parker would be so proud of you. That's probably what you're
That is so important, finding ways to get your stories to people my age and younger.
You saying us old folks need to get on the internet?
That's why I asked
Totally.
you. Oh my goodness. Let me set up a Discord server.
One of the co-chairs of Monterey Peninsula Pride is in the room, Beth, and I think you have some comments.
Oh, yeah, it was more from a personal perspective than my actual role from Pride. So I moved down here from San Francisco with my wife, and she grew up in Pacific Grove and wanted to move back after she retired. And we got there a few seconds later, and she's like, "I'm really sorry I pulled you back to this racist, homophobic town." So, but what we have carved out and noticed is that people are afraid to speak up there, and that people are still being tormented. And because of all the work that y'all have done in the past, where I now feel confident that I'm not going to get kicked out of my home because I have laws to protect me, and I will not be fired from my job because I have laws to protect me, then also being a white woman, that I have more privilege than other people in my town, and that's where I have found my voice, is to be able to feel safe and be able to speak up on behalf of others that I know don't feel safe to do so. And so that is just kind of
I'm sorry, but we're at 2 minutes to 1, and I know that Wes needs to leave exactly at 1, so I'm going to make a final comment. So I'm sorry. So one final comment. So I want to just remind you again that, first of all, I want to say I cannot speak enough about the Village Project itself. One of the things that you'll notice about all the activists up here who do tremendous work within the LGBT community do not only do work within the LGBT community, right? So if this is the work that you do it in all the places that you are. And one of the things that's fantastic about the Village Project, which I have said for years, is the best institution that we have in the Black community. It's just fabulous. And then I was so pleased a couple of years ago when I noticed that at the front of their website is that it is an LGBT inclusive space. So that's wonderful work that's being done here. Please consider donating to the Village Project, consider donating to the Monterey Peninsula Pride, and consider donating to our new Rainbow Raft Pride Center. And please come to our Pride celebration next week and see me in my glory. And most importantly, have a gay day!